What's going on, guys? I got this new play that I am watching, and I actually entered a little bit today. It looks a lot like KLDO. This thing is looking pretty geared up. We have one warning sign, but depending on how this works out, it may end up not being that big of a deal. So basically, this is the pattern that she's in. I made this trend line here as basically the main trend line that it's been following a lot. And obviously, once it bounced off of this level here, we came up, we created a secondary trend line that it's been following. It had one little spinning top candle here, which actually signaled a reversal of this downswing, and we had a second spinning top here, and then we had this candle here at the bottom of a downtrend, signaling that we were catching some bottom. And this was kind of like the final blast off candle there. Originally, when I was looking at this, I had set a buy order around 860, and I actually grabbed it right here, and I rode it up to around this somewhere in this area and sold it. But the only reason was because I needed cash for something else, so I moved my funds elsewhere. And I looked back at this thing today and realized, holy crap, it's about to break out of this long-term trend here. So one warning sign that I have in this trend is this TD sequential. We had a TD9 flash here. We had a rising channel that we broke out of, which is good to see because it is more of a bearish signal. But since we're in an uptrend, usually and sometimes you can get bullish breakouts of it. But if you see in the past, anytime we've had a red TD9 flash, we did actually have a correction. And that's why I'm kind of curious. In this sense, we had we actually had a pink TD9 flash, and that usually happens after ignoring a red TD9 flash. So I'm not sure whether or not we're going to get a correction here or not. The breakout of the pattern was 1130. Now that's where you want to find support. So depending on if we do get a pullback here when market opens, then if we wanted to look for a place to potentially buy, we would have to expect that it would come back down to this secondary trend line unless it decides to find support on this pattern breakout. So I'm gonna expect that it would find support here. So we would look for a potential buy zone of 1069. If it does decide to come back down and ignore this red TD9 flash, then any type of buy around this 1130 range with a stop loss below, maybe at like 1125 to protect yourself, depending if you're worried about a 30-cent drop or not, depending on how much money you're putting in it, then that would be your play. And, yes, the RSI is a little bit up here, but in regards to how high the RSI came the last time we came up in this range, it's not really too big of a deal because we can come all the way up to this area right here. So we're going to put that trend line there. Now, obviously we've been rejected a few times in this pattern, but it hasn't came up that often. It just created this great massive W, had a rejection there, came back down for one more test of this trend line, and now it's getting ready to break out. And this is a perfect opportunity to get in. Like I said, we might be able to get one more quick buy before it decides to break out further around 1065, and then we can long it up. Now, if you want to take a look at the actual breakout of this thing, we have a couple different options. We can look for resistance if we look at the past here. Let me get rid of this TD sequential so it looks a little cleaner. So in the past, we double topped around 1496 So that would be our first most likely profit taking point or rejection point. And then after that, it came all the way up to about 23.75. So obviously this isn't going to happen in 1 week. It could happen in 1 month, at least to the $14 to $15 range. Now the breakout target of this actual pattern goes all the way up to $27. Now, if we came up to this $24 range and got rejected, then, we'll have to analyze when it gets there, if it gets there. But if it breaks above that, even with a $28 target, blue sky breakout at that point, because there's no resistance anywhere past this 23 level. So it can go on for as long as it wants to, basically, until the signals call for a correction. But that being said, this is something to keep your eyes on. And after hours, I think it's already pumped up to about 1188. That's just from having a weekly close above this trend line. So the only reason I'm wondering if we're not going to even come below this level is for the fact that we had that weekly close. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for sure. That red TD9. Let's look on the weekly real quick. See if we had any. Yeah, we didn't have any type of TD9 flashes on the weekly. And it's just looking geared up and ready to go. So I bought myself some around 1120 because it really looked like it was getting ready to break out. And that's what it did. It was in this little bull flag. We did have, or a little pennant. We did have this red TD9 flash on the hourly, which isn't as big of a deal. But we did come back and retest this 1130, and we turned into support for the time being. So, excuse me. So, like I said, if you wanted to try to pick some up cheaper and you didn't want to deal with that, you don't want to be buying it at 1130, you could potentially set some buy orders for this 1075 area in case it decides to come back in here and try one more time to break out. And that, at that point, is going to be the best long you can possibly do on this thing. If it comes back down in that range, I will be buying. If I see it holding this 1130 on Tuesday when it opens up, I'll be throwing in some more money at it as well, because this is going to be just like buying KLDO at this range, at the 1075 range, and you saw what it did. It went all the way up to 14 something. So, and it still has a lot more room to go. I just was looking for a little bit of a correction on it. I could be wrong on that because it's hard to call a correction on a parabolic run that it's been in. And that's usually what happens when these things break out of these levels. It creates a parabolic structure, and it's hard to call a correction on anything like that because it just wants to keep on going. So much momentum behind it, This is let's see how long it's been in this pattern for. Let me look on the weekly so I can get a better view real quick. So on the weekly, the pattern started in 2019, December 2019, and it's ran all the way till the 2021. So that being said, it's been consolidating in here, accumulating in here for a very long time. So this lovely rounding structure is accumulation phase. So we are about to blast off, and this is the perfect time to get in. Even if you weren't accumulating through all this section here, which is still a smart thing to do, of course, getting in if this thing decides to take off out of here is the best scenario, because then we will have a run up just like we had over here where this blast off happened. This wasn't as long of an accumulation, but it did have some type of falling wedge action here and falling channel, really, or maybe it was like a falling wedge, and we blasted off, and then we finally found resistance here, and then we corrected and we accumulated. And now we are starting to get ready to blast off. And then we could do the same type of thing, have accumulation for a few years, and then blast off higher. So we like to catch these things right on this blast off phase because you can make the most money right here. So now we blast off, we sell somewhere up in here, let it accumulate for a few years, and look back, whether it takes a few years or whatever, probably a couple years again. And then you would be looking at an even bigger breakout, so you'd want to look back at it again later, so don't keep it off your radar. But doing this breakout trade is going to be massive. So I just wanted to put this video out there. This is one that I am in right now, but I didn't buy as many shares as I would have liked. But I am planning on buying a lot more on Tuesday, depending on how things go. So keep an eye on this thing. If you didn't see KLDO or any of my KLDO videos, I'll just show you real quick. Actually, you know what? I can do something even cooler. That will be even more fun. Let's check this out real quick. So if we zoom this thing out, let's put it on the weekly real quick. Okay, take a look at it. Boom. Right? And we take a comparison of KLDO, new price scale. Click on that. Oops, did I do that wrong? New price scale. There we go. KLDO. And let's kind of compare this thing. Obviously, it's not the same exact, but look in relations to KLDO, how similar. Not as volatile as swings, but we had this peak, we had this drop, peak, drop, accumulation, and look where we're at. We're at the blast-off stage. So this is what happened to KLDO recently. And we bought this motherfucker probably right around here when I made my video on KLDO. Actually, the first video I made was right here. Then I sold it somewhere right here and bought it again in this right here. And we've blasted off since. And now I sold it right here. So could it go higher on KLDO? I have a $19 to $22 target, just like I have a $30 target for this. But when the signals are telling you for a small pullback, sometimes you just got to lock in your gains. So, you know, it's very possible that in this scenario, we would ride it up to somewhere in this range here, and this range or sooner, or this range, depending on how everything looks, and do a little sell and let it do its correction and flag out and reset RSI, and then we'd buy it again and we'd ride it up to the next point. And that's where I'm at with KLDO. But for the time being, the money that I made over on KLDO, I am switching over into this bitch. So I can make more money to put into KLDO and just flip-flop between the two. So that being said, this is the next big play. This one is a lot safer. It doesn't move very fast, but when it does, it has nice pumps out of here, small little drops, corrections, nice pump, small little drop, correction, nice pump, and so on and so forth. Same as KLDO, it moves kind of slow, but when you look back at it, it's up, 80, 90 cents every day or so. So that's going to be kind of how this thing works out. And I just wanted to keep you guys in the loop that this is where I'm going. So watch for this price action. Remember the targets. We have, 1130 is the breakout. So if you see it come back to 1130 and it seems to be holding 1130, then we'll put in a big buy order and we're going to ride it up. And if you see it drop down and it happens to drop to any of those levels we discussed of like 10.75 or anything below $11 really is going to be a huge buy, because I don't think that this thing is going to just crapshoot back down or anything to the bottom of the pattern. So this thing is in breakout mode. It's ready to go, and it's getting to a parabolic run here, and we're going to catch this thing right when it broke out. So let's get this shit. Let's get that money.